And some people say, but Barb, if I drink water, my legs swell. Do you know what that tells me? The water is not getting inside the cell. The cell is surrounded by what's called a bilayered membrane. This is a double-layered membrane.
Dr. Barbara O'Neill tells us something we all know. The most important thing for life is oxygen. But what's the second most important? It's water. She shares an incredible story about people escaping a Siberian work camp, surviving almost 2 weeks without water. It leaves us all thinking, how long could we last? Dr. O'Neill then asks a question that makes everyone stop and think, how much water do you drink? People often say things like, I don't like water, or if I drink water, my feet swell. These answers tell her that water isn't getting inside their cells properly. So, how do we fix this? She tells us about the third most important thing for life, sodium.
But what's a surprise to most people is the third vital element needed for life is sodium.
Dr. Barbara O'Neill explains that in nature, we find sodium in seawater, which has 92 minerals. But when humans turn seawater into table salt, they remove most of the minerals and add chemicals like aluminum.
You think about it, we're salty people. Our tears are salty, our blood's salty. Baby swims in utero in salt water.
This creates a problem because too much sodium and not enough potassium from fruits and vegetables can cause high blood pressure. The cells in your body start swelling up with too much sodium. It's simple but alarming. Eating too much table salt can be dangerous. But Dr. O'Neill offers a solution. She talks about Celtic salt, a natural salt with 82 minerals. Unlike table salt, it has magnesium, which helps your body absorb water better. She even gives a useful tip. Put a small crystal of Celtic salt on your tongue. This helps the minerals get into your body and allows water to enter your cells, quickly hydrating you. But she also warns that drinking too much water can actually be harmful. Not because water itself is bad, but because without the right balance of minerals, like the ones found in Celtic salt, our bodies struggle to absorb it. She often hears people say that they're drinking more water, but they can't stop going to the bathroom. Her response is, just a small crystal of Celtic salt before each glass of water makes all the difference. Dr. Barbara O'Neill explains that you shouldn't gulp down an entire glass of water at once. Instead, she advises, drink it slowly and spread it throughout the day. Dr. O'Neill compares the body to a garden. Think of how the rain falls. Gentle, steady drops nourish the earth. But when rain comes in torrents, it causes floods and washes away the soil. The same goes for the body, she warns. Gulping down water in large amounts is like a flood. It rushes out of your system just as fast as it went in. Instead, let the water trickle in little by little, and your body will absorb and retain it better.
Man with the Helicobacter problem in his stomach, he was drinking 2 litres of water a day, but he was drinking it at the wrong time. That's why the description here is use of water.
Then she shares a crucial insight about salt, specifically table salt versus Celtic salt. Table salt, or sodium chloride, can actually kill your taste buds. Have you ever seen someone who adds salt to their food even before tasting it? Those taste buds are dying, she explains, from an overload of sodium chloride. But Celtic salt, rich in minerals, does the opposite. It enhances flavor. Suddenly, the difference between these two salts becomes crystal clear.
People put it on and they don't even taste the food. That's because the table salt, the sodium chloride, is so harsh that it kills the taste buds. So no wonder they have to put so much on.
Dr. O'Neill takes her audience into her kitchen next, where she serves a simple yet delicious dish, red lentils. Many people ask her how it's so flavorful, but the answer is even more intriguing. It's just a bit of olive oil, some fresh herbs, turmeric, and Celtic salt. Her secret is she rinses the lentils thoroughly before cooking, making the dish clean, quick, and tasty.
It's hand harvested by the traditional Celtic method. It's in Brittany, in France, 4.5 million acres of these beautiful salt flats, where it's a hand harvested sea salt.
Dr. O'Neill shares with a smile. She doesn't want to spend her morning stuck in the kitchen. Simple, nutritious, and efficient, just like her advice on water and salt.
And weren't those red lentils magnificent this morning? And one of the reasons they tasted so good, because they had salt.
Also, potassium, found in all those fresh fruits and veggies we tend to skip, is just as important. And then there's calcium, but here's the catch. Calcium can't get into the cell on its own. It needs a little help from vitamin D, which comes from sunshine. So what's happening today? Many people aren't drinking enough water, they're not consuming whole salt, and they're definitely not eating enough greens. The little water they are drinking, it's not even getting into the cell?
I remember one morning, because they're Michael's favourite, the red lentils. He always has them with avocado. And he has the sourdough toast with avocado, red lentils on top. It's very nice.
They're avoiding the sun out of fear of skin cancer, so no vitamin D. And without vitamin D, calcium stays outside the cell. Can you see where this is going? The body is left deficient and it starts to struggle. Dr. Barbara O'Neill points out something we've all seen: a focus on fat-free foods. People believe that cutting out fats will help them lose weight, but fats give you a feeling of satisfaction. Without them, your body doesn't signal that it's full, and suddenly that whole packet of cookies or chips disappears. This is where the trouble begins. Without good fats, protein, or fiber to tell your body enough, people keep eating, thinking they're doing the right thing. But with this high-carb, low-fat diet, the minerals in water can't get into the cells, and the glucose stays trapped outside. What does the body do? It fights back. It decides to force everything into the cell, and this leads to high blood pressure. Yes, high blood pressure can be caused by dehydration, mineral deficiencies, a lack of magnesium, and not enough vitamin D. Everything adds up. Dr. Barbara O'Neill takes us inside the body to see how dehydration affects us on a deeper level. Even at the simplest level, your mouth dehydration has surprising effects. Did you know that chronic dehydration can cause your body to produce too much saliva? Many think a dry mouth is the sign of dehydration, but it turns out an excess of saliva can be another clue. So how much water should we drink every day? The answer isn't as straightforward as people think. Every day our bodies lose about 2.5 quarts of water. And let's be clear, this is just in normal circumstances. 1.5 quarts leave through our urine, half a quart through our skin, and smaller amounts through the colon and lungs. That's why we need to drink at least 2 quarts of water daily to replace this. But Dr. O'Neill points out that if you're doing something like a steam sauna daily, you're losing even more water, up to 0.8 quarts through sweat alone. She emphasizes the importance of balancing this out with what we consume, such as water-rich fruits, vegetables, and herbal teas. Are we drinking enough water to cover our loss? Most of us are not. Then Dr. O'Neill brings a surprising revelation. What happens when we don't get enough water? The body goes into something called drought management. Yes, just like in nature, the body starts conserving what little water it has. And the key player in this is histamine, a hormone that kicks in to help manage the shortage. Now, have you ever wondered why people use antihistamines for allergic reactions? Well, according to Dr. O'Neill, the best antihistamine is simply drinking water. Dr. O'Neill delves deeper, uncovering another fascinating piece of the puzzle. When the body loses water, the first area affected is the stomach's lining. This thick mucosa wall that protects us from stomach acid starts to thin out. Normally, the mucosa wall contains sodium bicarbonate, which neutralizes stomach acid and protects us from ulcers. But when this wall breaks down, it leaves us vulnerable to things like stomach ulcers. And the story doesn't end there.
The first place that water is lost is the stomach. Because lining our stomach, we have a thick mucosa lining, and in that thick mucosa lining is sodium bicarbonate.
Dr. O'Neill explains the power of hydrochloric acid in our stomach, which not only helps digest food, but also acts as a shield against bacteria, yeast, and fungi. But when we chug down water during meals, we unintentionally dilute this crucial acid. It's like giving the bad guys in your stomach a chance to survive.
And that sodium bicarbonate is in the stomach lining, so that if any stomach acid tries to go through, it's immediately negated or neutralized, so that the hydrochloric acid doesn't eat out our stomach.
Dr. O'Neill adds that for patients dealing with Helicobacter pylori, the bacteria linked to ulcers, she often increases their hydrochloric acid levels to help fight it off naturally. While she acknowledges the great work of scientists who discover bacteria like Helicobacter pylori, she also hints at the influence pharmaceutical companies might have on certain medical practices. Dr. Barbara O'Neill reveals a crucial discovery from Dr. Batman Galdi, affectionately called Dr. B. His research highlights something surprising. The first place we lose water in the body is the gastrointestinal tract. This discovery is profound because the gastrointestinal tract is where many essential processes happen, including the work of the pancreas. Now, the pancreas has a very important job. It releases two hormones that help balance our blood sugar, insulin, and glucagon. But what if you're dehydrated? Dr. O'Neill explains that when dehydration kicks in, these hormones aren't made as they should be, and this can contribute to diabetes.
He was very short in his answers. I said, how much water do you drink a day? 2 litres. I thought, oh, well, he's a good water drinker, let's move on. Are you on any medication? Yes, I am. I'm on a different medication every month. I've got Helicobacter pylori in my stomach.
But that's not all the pancreas does. Dr. O'Neill shares more insights, explaining that the pancreas also releases other key hormones to finalize digestion. For fats, it releases pancreatic lipase. For starches, it's pancreatic amylase. For proteins, the pancreas gives us trypsin and chymotrypsin. Here's where things get serious. All of these hormones are made out of water. Without enough water...
How long have you been doing this for? 5 months? That's a different antibiotic every month to kill Helicobacter pylori. And every month when he goes back to the doctor, they just do breath tests now.
Digestion can be compromised at every stage. It's clear water plays a bigger role than most of us realize. Dr. B was so convinced by his findings that he named his book, When a Person Has a Symptom of Disease, It Must Be One of the Body's Many Cries for Water. Dr. O'Neill brings our attention to how our brain cells shrink when dehydrated, often leading to headaches. But even more alarming, dehydration can cause negative thought patterns. Who would have thought that something as simple as water could affect our mental well-being this much? Dr. O'Neill then turns our focus to joints. She demonstrates how fluid around every joint, called synovial fluid, is 99% water. So, when you're dehydrated, the body borrows water from this fluid to maintain blood volume. Think about it. Joint pain, often labeled as arthritis, could sometimes just be a sign of dehydration. Water's influence doesn't stop there. Dr. O'Neill takes us to the lungs, drawing a picture of how our trachea splits into bronchioles and ends at little sacs called alveoli. This is where the magic of gaseous exchange happens. There's a tiny droplet of water in each alveolus, which collapses when we exhale, pushing out carbon dioxide and letting us take in more oxygen with each breath.
To do what you've always done and expect different results. I'm not criticizing him. I think he and the doctor are hoping that the next antibiotic will really wipe it out.
Without enough water, this process falters. And in a state of dehydration, the body may even start constricting those tiny airways to prevent water loss, leading to restricted breathing. Dr. O'Neill continues to unravel the dangers of dehydration, noting how thick our blood becomes when we don't drink enough water. Thick blood forces the heart to work harder and makes the kidney's job of filtering far more difficult. It all circles back to this simple yet vital truth. Water is needed for every single body function. Dr. O'Neill's message is crystal clear. Dehydration is a silent enemy, and we must listen to our body's cries for water.